There was a version of you, maybe not that long ago, who woke up every morning feeling chosen, feeling seen, feeling like you had finally found the one person on this earth who truly understood you. Think about that moment, the texts at 2 a.m., the "I've never felt this way about anyone," the feeling that this person was built specifically for you. Can you remember exactly when it started to feel off? Because here's what nobody tells you. That feeling, that electric, all-consuming certainty, was engineered, not discovered, engineered, and the cruelest part? The very intensity that made you fall is the same weapon that will be used to break you. Love bombing isn't affection turned up to full volume. It's a deliberate calibration. Every call that ran until 3 a.m., every "you're different from everyone else," every future they painted with you at the center, it was a carefully constructed investment. And you were the asset. Did they ever make you feel guilty for not matching their energy? Like you were the one being cold or distant when you didn't respond fast enough? That guilt was the first chain. Because love bombers don't just overwhelm you with affection, they train you. Every response you gave, every boundary you softened, every time you thought, maybe I'm overthinking this, that was conditioning. You were learning that their intensity was the standard, and anything less from you was a failure. You weren't falling in love. You were being installed. Bit by bit, your sense of normal was being replaced with theirs. And then one day, no announcement and no explanation, the golden person you fell for became someone else entirely. The texts slowed down. The warmth drained out of their voice. They looked at you like you were a stranger. Or worse, like you were a nuisance. What did you tell yourself the first time you felt it? Did you think you had done something wrong? Did you start replaying every conversation, every word you said, trying to find the moment you ruined it? This is the part that destroys people, not the coldness itself, but the fact that your brain cannot reconcile the two versions of this person, the one who said you were their person, and the one who now makes you feel invisible. So your mind does what minds do. It tries to solve the problem, and the easiest solution your brain lands on is this: it must be me. But here's the truth that will rewrite everything you thought you understood. The shift didn't happen overnight. The mask just finally came off. The cold version, that was always the real one. The warmth was the performance. Narcissists, dark triad personalities. They don't experience connection the way you do. They experience supply. You were never a person to them. You were a source. And like any resource, once you were secured, once you were emotionally invested, once your self-worth was tied to their approval, the effort required to maintain the illusion became unnecessary. Did you notice that the devaluation often came right after a moment of real intimacy? After you were most vulnerable? After you said something that showed how deeply you cared? That's not coincidence. Vulnerability is leverage to a predator. The moment you showed them how much you needed them, that was the moment the power dynamic locked in. From that point, you were no longer someone to impress. You were someone to manage. And here's the most disturbing part. They didn't plan this consciously in a dark room somewhere. For many of them, it's instinctive, automatic. They genuinely cannot understand why you're devastated, because to them, nothing changed. The transaction was simply complete. You've probably been told, by friends, by family, maybe even by yourself, just leave. As if it were that simple. as if the person currently destroying your self-worth isn't also the person your nervous system has been trained to need. Have you ever caught yourself hoping, even in your darkest moments, that they'd go back to who they were in the beginning? That if you just said the right thing or loved them the right way, the good version would come back. That hope isn't weakness. That hope is the result of a neurochemical process called intermittent reinforcement. Random rewards, rare moments of warmth buried inside consistent pain, are statistically proven to create stronger bonds than consistent love ever could. Your brain is chasing a high it was deliberately trained to crave. The good version of them isn't coming back, because it was never fully real. What you're grieving isn't a person, it's a persona, and you can't get back something that was never truly there. Understanding the mechanism doesn't erase the pain, but it does something more important. It relocates it. The pain stops being about what's wrong with you, and it becomes about what was done to you. That is not a small distinction. That is the difference between carrying shame and carrying a wound. Wounds heal. Shame eats you alive. When was the last time you gave yourself the same compassion you gave to the person who hurt you? You weren't naive. You weren't stupid. You were targeted by someone who had spent years perfecting the art of becoming exactly what you needed. That's not your failure. That's their pathology. The shift from love bombing to devaluation isn't random. It isn't personal. And it isn't your fault. It is a predictable, documented pattern, one that plays out in the same sequence, with the same tactics, across thousands of relationships around the world right now. And the fact that you're here, watching this, asking these questions, means something critical has shifted in you. You are no longer just experiencing this. You are beginning to understand it. I want to tell you about someone. I'm going to call her Sarah, though her name doesn't matter, because in the years I have spent studying this psychology, her story is not one story. It is 10,000 stories. It might be yours. Sarah was not naive. She had a career she had worked hard to build. She had friends who loved her. She'd been hurt before. She knew what red flags look like in theory. She had read the articles. She thought she would recognize it. And then she met him. He remembered everything. The name of her childhood dog, the way she took her coffee, the offhand comment she made on their second conversation about feeling invisible growing up. A small, embarrassing thing she wished she hadn't said. He remembered it. 3 weeks later, unprompted, he told her, "I want you to know, I see you. I have always seen you. From the very first time we talked." She cried. Not in front of him, later, alone, because nobody had ever said that to her before, and it felt like being handed something she had been waiting for her entire life. For 4 months, he was everything. Present, intense, certain. He talked about their future with a specificity that felt like a promise. Not vague romance, but real details. The city they would move to, the kind of apartment, the dog they would get. He built a life with her in his words before a single brick had been laid in reality. And then, slowly at first, then all at once, he wasn't. The texts stopped arriving the moment she woke up. The calls got shorter. When she asked if something was wrong, he said no, but in a tone that meant, "Why are you asking so many questions?" When she cried about something hard that had happened at work, the kind of thing she used to tell him immediately, he was distracted, present in the room, but gone from behind his eyes. And she noticed. Of course she noticed. and the noticing began to consume her. Do you know that feeling? When you can sense something is wrong, but you have no proof, and so you start to wonder if you're losing your mind. When you replay the last conversation searching for what you did wrong. When you perform happiness in front of them because you're terrified that if they see your fear, they'll leave faster. Sarah started working harder, softer, funnier, more agreeable. She stopped bringing up the things that bothered her because every time she did, she somehow ended up apologizing. She started apologizing for things she hadn't done, for feelings she had a right to feel. She apologized for being sad. She apologized for missing him while he was sitting right next to her. One night, she sat alone in her car outside their apartment for 45 minutes because she needed to compose herself before going inside. She needed to make sure she looked okay, unbothered, easy to love. She sat in the dark, rehearsing how to be the version of herself he might still want. And somewhere in those 45 minutes, she realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd just been herself, the real one, not the performance. She disappeared inside the effort of trying to keep him. That was the moment, not the day he left, not the final argument, that car, that parking lot. That woman sitting alone rehearsing how to be lovable enough for someone who had already decided she wasn't. That was the real ending. Everything after was just paperwork. She told me something later that I have never forgotten. She said, "The worst part wasn't what he did to me. The worst part was what I did to myself trying to survive him. I became someone I didn't recognize. And when it was finally over, I didn't even know how to find my way back." That sentence, that is the true cost of this. Not just the heartbreak. Heartbreak is survivable. Most of us have carried it. The real cost is the self that goes missing in the process. The parts of you that get quietly traded away, your voice, your instincts, your ability to trust what you feel, in exchange for just a few more days of something that was never real. Now, is there a version of you, the you from before this person, that you miss? Not a perfect version, just the version that felt more like yours, the one that didn't flinch at their own opinion, the one that didn't apologize for being hungry or tired or sad or human. Do you remember who that was? Because that version of you is not gone, buried, maybe, quieted, taught by someone else's cruelty to take up less space, but not gone. The fact that you feel the loss of that self so clearly, the fact that you miss her, or him, or them, means they are still in there, still waiting. You did not lose yourself permanently. You loaned yourself to someone who didn't deserve the collateral, and loans can be reclaimed. Selves can be returned to. Sarah is okay now. It took longer than she wanted and harder than she expected. But she told me recently that she'd done something small, something that would have seemed insignificant to anyone else. She had said no to something she didn't want to do, without explaining, without apologizing, without waiting for permission, just no. And she said it felt like finding a door in a wall she thought was solid, a way back through. One small, quiet, unwitnessed act of being herself again. Drop a number in the comments. 1, if the devaluation hit without any warning. 2, if you blamed yourself when it happened. 3, if you're only now starting to understand what it actually was. I read every single one. The darkness doesn't frighten me, neither does the truth. Until next time, stay aware.